We are already hearing reports that the Trump administration has begun firing many workers at the Department of Labor and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Thinking about institutional stability. And what we are witnessing that is taking place in this country really is something that I find very outrageous and shameful. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation. I hope that we get to have many of these conversations. And lastly, before I yield back my time, Mr. Molino, why do you, Ms. Molino, why do you believe workers suffering heat exhaustion is not a work hazard?
Excuse me. It is a public health hazard.
If you think Washington can protect American workers simply by throwing more money and bureaucrats at the problem, Ilhan Omar's latest hearing deserves a closer look. She attacked Republicans over proposed federal cuts, but the bigger question is this: are we actually protecting workers, or are we creating a government system that becomes too expensive and ineffective to sustain? Before we break it down, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because we're going straight into the facts. What do you think? Can America protect workers while also reducing unnecessary government spending? Capitol Spotlight gives you important moments and political debates from Washington. Kindly subscribe, like, and share.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I find it truly astonishing that House Republicans have brought us here today to discuss ways to unleash America's workforce while they are actively abandoning workers. How exactly are we supposed to unleash anything when federal workers are being threatened by an unelected billionaire? When critical government services and authorized funds are being disturbed at a whim? When worker protection, basic safeguards against unsafe working conditions and employment discrimination are being undermined? We are already hearing reports that the Trump administration has begun firing many workers at the Department of Labor and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Ranking Member Scott and I recently sent a letter to HHS demanding more information about these staffing cuts and grant distributions. We have not heard anything back yet. Dr. Sherholz, I want you to help us understand how these attacks on critical agencies will impact worker safety. What does it mean for workers if these agencies lose significant numbers of federal employees?
What OSHA does is protect workers' health and safety by passing laws, by passing regulations, publishing regulations, enforcing those regulations. When they have less personnel, they will be able to do that less effectively. America's workers will be less safe on the job, full stop. The Wage and Hour Division, for example, they enforce wage protections. They make sure, their workforce has already been shrunk dramatically, so their low-wage workers today lose tens of billions of dollars a year in the form of wage theft by their employers, employers not paying minimum wages that they are owed, not paying overtime that they are owed. We cut Wage and Hour Division, and that skyrockets even further. Workers will be hurt by actually being hurt on the job and by losing wages that they were legally owed.
Yeah. And who really benefits when agencies lose this capacity?
Okay. The people who benefit are bad apple employers. They benefit because they are able to cut corners on worker safety protections. They're able to cut corners on actually paying their workers. They just don't have as much oversight over what they do. So bad apple employers gain over workers. Bad apple employers gain over lawful employers because then they are in a competitive advantage over lawful employers. And then the other group that benefits from this are the wealthy, who are going to be the disproportionate beneficiaries of the tax cuts that these kinds of agency cuts are going to help pay for.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I have to say, these attacks will have, as you just said, real and devastating consequences for working people in this country. It's about thinking about economic mobility. It's about thinking about job security. It's, at minimum, thinking about institutional stability. And what we are witnessing that is taking place in this country really is something that I find very outrageous and shameful. And I'm glad that we are having this conversation. I hope that we get to have many of these conversations. And lastly, before I yield back my time, Mr. Molino, Ms. Molino, why do you believe workers suffering heat exhaustion is not a work hazard?
Excuse me. It is a public health hazard, and OSHA is limited by what the authority that Congress has delegated it. OSHA has authority to regulate and oversee occupational hazards.
Yeah, standards, right?
Occupational hazards.
Yes. And why
Getting
would you
hot,
not? Why would you
needing
not
water,
think it is
things like
not an
that.
occupational hazard if someone is being forced to work 8 hours under 120 degrees
And
without
employers-
getting regular breaks?
And employers are already taking action to
So
protect
you
workers
believe
from heat.
employers should have the responsibility to decide
have a
who dies and who
responsibility to keep-
survives in the heat?
They have a responsibility to keep their workers safe, most definitely, but that is separate and apart from
So you're
OSHA's
saying
authority.
those employers who have not done that, who have seen people die at their workplaces in places like Texas, it's just because they're bad people, and we shouldn't have the responsibility of protecting the workers, is what I hear. I yield
That's
back.
not what I'm saying, but thank you.
I thank the gentlelady. I recognize now the gentleman from California, Mr. Kiley.
Ilhan Omar came into this hearing with a very clear message. She believes Republican efforts to reduce federal staffing and spending could put American workers at risk. Omar argued that it makes little sense to talk about unleashing the American workforce while, in her view, federal agencies responsible for workplace protections are being weakened. She specifically raised concerns about reported staffing reductions at agencies connected to worker safety and labor enforcement. Her argument was that fewer federal employees could mean less enforcement of workplace safety rules, wage laws, and other protections. And honestly, there is an important issue buried inside that argument. American workers absolutely deserve safe workplaces. Employers should follow the law, pay workers what they are legally owed, and take reasonable steps to prevent dangerous working conditions. But here's where conservatives should push back. The question isn't whether worker safety matters. Of course it does. The question is whether Washington's answer to every problem should be bigger government, more federal employees, and more spending. During the hearing, Dr. Scholes argued that reducing staffing at agencies like OSHA could weaken enforcement. He also pointed to wage theft as a major problem, arguing that workers already lose billions of dollars through unpaid wages and overtime. But this is exactly where we need accountability on both sides. If an employer violates the law, that employers should be held responsible. Nobody should get a free pass to endanger workers or steal wages. At the same time, if one company follows every safety and wage requirement while another cuts corners to save money, the law should prevent the dishonest company from gaining an unfair advantage. That's not a Republican or Democratic principle. That's basic fairness. But here's the bigger point. America needs a workforce that can succeed because of opportunity, productivity, good wages, strong businesses, and economic growth, not because Washington keeps expanding the bureaucracy. We should be able to protect workers while also demanding accountability from government. We should be able to enforce labor laws while questioning waste. And we should be able to support workplace safety without pretending that every federal program is automatically efficient. Ilhan Omar called the proposed changes outrageous and shameful. But I think the American people deserve something more than outrage from Washington. They deserve results. They deserve government agencies that protect workers when necessary, businesses that play by the rules, and politicians who remember that every dollar being spent ultimately comes from American taxpayers. So the real question isn't simply whether federal agencies should have more employees. The real question is, are those agencies actually delivering enough value to justify the cost? That's the conversation Washington needs to have. If you agree that worker safety matters but government accountability matters too, let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want more straight-to-the-point political commentary from Capitol Hill, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and stay tuned for the next one.